Hello everybody and welcome to this AutoCAD tutorial. Today I'm going to be doing a very basic practice drawing from this textbook, AutoCAD and its Applications 25th edition 2018. This drawing can be found on page 90, it's problem number 9, or you can just screenshot the image from this video, whatever floats your boat. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up AutoCAD, and I'm making this tutorial for people that have at least a little bit of background knowledge in AutoCAD. So I'm not going to be explaining all of the little buttons and windows and such. There are plenty of great videos out there on YouTube made by AutoCAD experts that you can reference, and I'll put a link to one in the description. Please note that I am not a professional. I'm still learning, and I'm really just using this video as a way to improve my skills and speed up my work process. You'll see that there are many ways to do things in AutoCAD, and I'm just sharing one way that I did it. If you have a better way, please let me know in the comments. I will be sharing some of the most handy things that I've learned that sometimes get overlooked by beginners, like I did when I was new. Anyway, here's AutoCAD. I'm just checking the reference drawing to see if there are any units described in the instructions. Looks like no units, but there is a naming protocol, so that's good to know. Since there are no assigned units, I'll just open up a new drawing, no template. One of the most important things to get into the habit of, especially if you plan on making a career out of designing, is good digital hygiene, by which I mean saving all of your files consistently and in a logical and organized fashion. So I'll go ahead and hit Control S to save. I think it's like Command S or something for Mac. And of course you can always use the save buttons up at the top right. There's save and save as. Now I'll double check that naming protocol, which is real important, especially if you're working for a company or you're turning this in for a grade. I am not going to be, so I'll just name it something else. Okay, so now that we've saved and we don't need to do anything special with the units, we're ready to begin drawing. If you notice, the drawing is made out of lines that are all the same length and have vertical and horizontal, as well as lines at 30 degrees. There are a couple of ways to be sure that you get the angles right, but I think that the easiest way is to use this polar tracking feature down at the bottom right of the window. It's shaped kind of like a circle with some lines in it. Polar tracking also has a cousin to the left called orthographic mode, shaped like an L. You can see that it's on if it turns blue, and note that the ortho mode and polar modes are exclusive, meaning that if you turn one on, the other will go off. So it's like they're cousins, but they hate each other. So if you invite one to the party, the other guy's gonna go home. Polar tracking mode, which is the circular symbol, is, in my opinion, the more powerful option. This mode will snap your line to different angle increments, and when it is snapped, you'll see that green dotted line extending out forever. You can set the increments it snaps to by clicking this arrow next to the polar mode button, and you'll see all these different preset settings and just find the angle that you need, which is in our case 30 degrees. If you need some weird angle like 47 degrees, you can also set your own by clicking on tracking settings. Alright, so with my polar tracking set to be able to snap to 30 degrees, we can begin drawing. Let's check the drawing for our side lengths. Looks like it's 1.25, and I'll grab the line tool by either clicking at the top or using the keyboard shortcut L enter. Now I'll drag my mouse up until I see that green dotted line and type the side length 1.25 and press enter. Wow, okay, I'm super zoomed out. Okay, so I'll zoom in using my mouse's scroll wheel, which will zoom me into wherever my mouse is pointed. You can also use these buttons on the side, but I think they take way too long and are very annoying, so I recommend investing in a mouse with a scroll wheel if you don't have one already, because it will make your life with CAD so much easier. Plus, with the scroll wheel pressed down, I can pan around the drawing super easily without needing to click on the pan button or ever have to call the pan function. Alrighty, now that I can actually see what I'm doing, let's continue along the drawing. I'll point the mouse up and to the right until I see the angle that says 30 degrees and those green dotted lines appear, type my side length 1.25 and press enter. And just for your information, I'll show you another way to make sure your lengths and angles are correct if you just want to make your life a little bit harder by turning off polar tracking for whatever reason. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to undo all of my hard work by using the undo shortcut, Control Z, do that twice, and Control Z will become your best friend if it's not already. I'm grabbing the line tool and clicking anywhere to start drawing, and I'll turn off the polar tracking. Now, just like before, I'll drag the line up in the general upward direction and type the side length 1.25, but then I'm going to press the Tab key to lock that dimension into place. After hitting Tab, it's asking me for an angle. Since this is vertical, I'll type 90 and then hit Enter. And of course, I'm still looking at the drawing from a light year away, so let me zoom back in to see what the heck is going on. Now we repeat the process, putting the cursor in the general direction of 30 degrees, and then I'll type my side length 1.25, Tab, then 30, Enter. And cool, it works. That's handy, I guess, if you have a bunch of wacky angles in your drawing, but we do not, so I'm just going to turn polar tracking back on because I do not like to do more work than I have to. So with polar tracking mode back on, I'll go ahead and finish up the basic shape. Once you come to the end of your drawing, it's important to be sure that it does connect all back up to itself properly. If you've done all of the lines and angles correctly, it should close perfectly based on the dimensions alone, but if you want some extra assurance, turn on object snaps and make sure that you can see that little endpoint square, meaning that your line will end exactly where the first segment began. You can also see that I'm snapped to 30 degrees, which means that we've done it perfectly. I'll hit the escape key, which is my second best friend, after Control Z, and I'm done with the shape. Now, let's get organized with the layer manager. Mine happens to be already open, but if yours isn't, simply type the command shortcut LA, enter, and it will pop up. Now, I'm going to make a new layer by pressing this weird little symbol with the orange doodad on it, and I'll call it Shape. I'll rename layer 1 to Dim because that's where we're going to put our dimensions. This may not make sense right now, but trust me, it's all about that digital hygiene, baby! If you look carefully at the drawing, you'll see that the shape itself is just slightly thicker than the dimensions, and while there are plenty of ways to make a line thicker in AutoCAD, using the layers is the best way. Up at the top, you can see the properties with the line, color, line weight, and style. See how it says by layer? This means that whatever layer it's on, it will match the properties that we set in the layer properties panel. This makes it easier to ensure uniformity in the design, making sure that you don't accidentally leave somebody out, and it'll save you time later on if you want to make a change. You won't have to go through and select every single line and change it. Just put them all in a layer and change the layer properties, buddy. No problem. Using layers to control your properties is just a good habit to get into, especially if you're looking at a profession that will require large, complicated designs. So, without further ado, I'll select my entire shape and move it into the shape layer up at the top. Now, when I open the layer properties panel, you can see it says shape, which is good, and now I'll change the line weight to something a little bit bolder using this drop-down selection. Okay, cool. Now, when I click out, nothing happens. Don't worry, for some reason, AutoCAD automatically just doesn't display the line weights. I'm not really sure why, but hey, who cares? Let's just turn them on. Type, what was it again? Oh yeah, LW display for line weight display, and you can see that it is defaulted to off. Now, to turn it on, just type 1 and press enter, and wow, it works. Yay! If you ever want to turn it off again, just retype the command and press 0 and the line weights will disappear. Cool, so now let's put in our dims. I want these to be in a separate layer so that they don't have to be thick like these other boys are. So I'll change the active layer up at the top here to dim, and we can start dimming. To get the dimension tool, you can either press this big button up at the top or type the shortcut dim and press enter. To make the dimension, I'll click on either side of the line segment, and wow, okay. That is one effed up dim. Whatever, okay, no problem, we can fix that. For now, let me just set the dimension by clicking outside of the shape. Now to fix this bad boy, let's head over to dim styles by typing the command I think you can just type dims and hit enter, and AutoCAD will autofill your command. Now, you'll get this fun little window, and then you click modify, and you should get yet another fun little window. Now folks, I'm not gonna lie, this was the most time consuming part for me, figuring out all of the right settings, but no worries, I'll go through the important ones with you and skip over the parts of me stupidly clicking all of the wrong shit over and over again. Cool? Cool. I guess we could start by making these arrowheads a little less of an absurd size. Let's see, 0.8 looks good. Now the text size, 0.1 seems reasonable. Oh, okay, that preview there says otherwise though. That's all kinds of funky. Oh well, it'll work eventually. Now let's head over to the units and fix this weird un-American comma situation we got going on here. So, okay, the drawing wants us to display 3 decimal points with an extra 0 at the end. That 0 is called a trailing 0, and it doesn't really do much except for tell you that the measurements are precise up to 3 decimal places, so AutoCAD will usually suppress them automatically. But for this assignment, obviously we don't want that, so let's go to this 0 suppression box and uncheck that trailing 0 box. We want him to be free, unsuppressed. And of course we need to change the precision to 3 decimal places as well, and let's just Americanify this number by using a period instead of a comma to designate the decimal. Okay, let's see how it looks so far. Close this out and, okay, it's a bit better, but still a long way off. Our number, extension, and dimension lines are all just floating off in space. That's not cool. So I'll just press the enter key, which will repeat my last command, which was, of course, dim style. Okay, so honestly, I forget what all of these are all the time, so I'm taking advantage of AutoCAD's tips and button descriptions. You can see what all of this stuff does by just hovering your mouse over and reading the description. Oh, and by the way, these vertical lines are called extension lines, and the horizontal one is called the dimension line. I hope that's helpful. Anyway, now let me bumble around here for a minute or two while I figure out what the f I did last time. I'll speed it up and then show you the final settings so you can change them to match. But I recommend you click through on your own because it will help you learn and get familiar with all this jazz. Okay, cool. So far so good. Let me do the next one. I'll grab the tool from the ribbon, and instead of clicking on the endpoints, sometimes you can just hover over the line and the dimension will appear. It saves sometimes, but sometimes it just doesn't want to work, so it's up to you what you want to do. Oh, okay, so here's something I missed. We don't want this vertical text. Checking the reference image, all of the text is horizontal, so let's just fix that real quick. Okay, looking good. Let's do our last linear dimension and check that the reference image, we gotta put these little 2 X's that indicate that the lines are the same on the other side. So, why did I do that? Okay, it's gonna take me a minute to pull that back up, so hold on.
A few moments later.
Okay, wow, sorry for that. We can't all have brains that function all the time, you know, so yeah. Alright, so back to those 2 X's. We can do that a couple of ways. We can input text by using the mtext command, but then we'll have to format all this text to match the others, and that's just a hassle. So instead, I'm just going to double click on this dimension and it'll allow us to edit this text. Okay, so that's it for the linear dimensions. Now let's go and pick up our angular dimension tool, which is up at the top in the annotation tab. Click this little drop down and select angular. I need the measure of this line's angle with respect to the horizontal, so I'll just use this little horizontal line and slide it over to where I want it to be. Right about there looks good, and click into place. Yeah, this little line should be lined up with the vertical, just approximately. Now, I know it looks a little bit different right now, but we'll fix that in a minute. First, let's finish up the other angle dimension. Here, I need a horizontal reference, so I'm just going to draw one in using the line tool. Now I'll pick up the dimension tool and, whoops, make sure it's the angular dimension tool, and place it where I want, and then delete this extra line segment we no longer need. Now, this took me the longest to figure out, formatting these bad boys. Luckily, Professor Google was there to help me, and the good people at the Autodesk forum had my back. One thing that I have learned is that pretty much any problem you are encountering, someone has already asked about it in the forums, so don't hesitate to search through there or ask your own question if you don't see an answer. Very, very valuable resource. Now, what we need to do is flip these arrows to the outside and get rid of that arc in between. I am sure there's a much better way to do this, but I spent way too much time searching through the dim styles and the properties to care that this solution is a little bit tedious. If it works, I'm doing it, and if you have a better way, don't hesitate to let me know down below. So what I'm going to do is select the dimension and hover over one of these handles. I think it's this one, until I see a little drop down menu, and hit the option flip arrow. Yay, it works. Now rinse and repeat for the other fellas. And bada bing, bada boom, we got correctly oriented arrows in the room. Ugh, okay. Again, I couldn't find a setting to hide it, but it may be there, but I don't want to spend any more time looking for it than I already have, especially since I have found another solution that works. What we're going to do is explode these bad boys. That's right, explode. No worries, your computer will survive the blast. All this command does is break up shapes into little components, as you will see. Just select the two angular dimensions and type the keyboard shortcut X for explode, and then hit enter. Now, you see the other dimensions are like one dimension unit, and these exploded ones are now just a bunch of lines and triangles. So all we have to do now is delete the unwanted arcs, and we're good to go. One more nitpicky thing is that the font here is not the same. You can change the font in dim styles by clicking on these three little dots here in the text tab. There are all kinds of fonts here, but for the life of me, I just couldn't find the one that matched the drawing. If you find it, please let me know, but I'm not getting paid enough to go through and find it. I'm happy with... Ooh, Comic Sans. It's so tempting to turn that in. If I get 1,000 views on this stupid dumb video that took me 14 times as long to edit as it did to do the drawing by Wednesday, I swear I'll turn in my assignment with Comic Sans. Comic Sans. I won't even care if I get a point deduction, it'll be worth it. Anyway, you can also flip the text upside down and backwards if you want to do that for whatever reason. Well, okay, that's it. That's the drawing. I realized later that I forgot to do the 2 X's on the angles, but you smart cookies probably caught that and will add them in, right? Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and maybe even had some fun. Please go and do more practice drawings. If you're serious about a career in design or engineering, getting used to these programs is the #1 thing you can do to get ahead. Don't wait for the on-the-job training. Just go ahead and learn it yourself. Take the time and you'll impress your future boss by a lot. If you like this video, like it, and maybe I'll make some more. Who knows? I'm a mystery, even to myself. If you have questions or want me to draw anything in particular, leave a comment and maybe I'll respond. Either way, thank you, be kind to others, and have a great day.